Hey guys, what's up? Today we'll be looking at some new cards from the OCG V-Jump October 2018 official spoilers. These cards are going to be from the next main booster pack and the next structure deck R, which have been revealed. So this is going to include that new Extreme Force, the cards from there. So the first card is Bit Trooper or Bit Looper in the English. It's an Earth Cyberse level 4 with 1500 attack and 2000 defense. Its stats are very decent, considering it's a level 4, very balanced, but very defensively. Its effect reads, you can only use this the effect of this card's name once per turn. You can send one level 2 or lower monster from your hand to the graveyard, special summon this card from your hand. Obviously, being a Cyberse monster, this is part of Yusaku's card set, and will be good with cards like Datatron and Bitron, who are both level 2 monsters. The next card is Beltlink Wall Dragon. This is an Earth Dragon level 6, 0 attack, 2100 defense, and its effect reads, cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by this card's effect. When you link summon a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, place 2 counters on this card. And neither player can link summon a link monster whose link rating is higher than the number of counters on this card. Also, only link monsters can attack. If a monster is link summoned, remove 2 counters from this card. Once per turn, during your standby phase, place 1 counter on this card. In essence, this card is effective for restricting your opponent's link summon for probably a turn or 2, considering depends obviously on what link monster they're going for. But then again, you know, since it's starting off with 2 link counters, they can go for a link 1 or a link 2, but obviously will be restricted from having a link 3 or a link 4 monster. The benefit for this is just disruption of your opponent's plays, limiting their next turn. However, since it gains these counters once per turn, unless you have some means of counter removal, unless there's some sort of support for counter removal on this card for some other benefit, I don't see this card being run too often. More so than ever, it might be used just to summon out a further link monster. Okay. The next card is a pendulum monster called Mythical Beast Jackal. It is a dark spellcaster pendulum effect monster with who's level 1 with a scale of 4, 0 attack, 1400 defense. Its pendulum effect reads, you can only use the pendulum effect of this card's name once per turn. If you do not control another card in your pendulum zone, you can target one face-up card you control that you can place a spell counter on it. Destroy this card, and if you do, place 1 spell counter on that card. The monster effect reads, each time the spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When it resolves, you can remove 3 spell counters from your field, then tribute this card, special summon 1 Mythical Beast effect monster from your deck, except Mythical Beast Jackal. Now, I don't know of any other Mythical Beasts so far, so there isn't much to say about this card. The introduction of spell counters is not anything new, and the fact that it can only displace its spell counters when it's in the pendulum zone does not make it that effective. The only reason you might use this is in conjunction with something like the Magical City of Endymion, because that would be able to summon, you'd be able to use various spells and support from the spellcasters. I am disappointed it doesn't support Mythical Beast Jackal, because it's a decent attack monster, which translated into the TCG was Mythical Beast Cyberse. It's also a missed opportunity that it does not support Mythical Knight of Jackal, which is a 2700 attack monster, which does not see any real play at the moment. It would have been great if it supported that, because that card's effect reads that if you destroy a monster in battle with that card, it can be either returned to the top or of your opponent's deck or the bottom of it. So the next card is Mythical Beast Master Cyberse. This is a light spellcaster pendulum with a level 8 and scale 4, 2800 attack, 2800 defense. So it's balanced in both its stats. It's incredibly powerful. Its pendulum effect reads you can only use this card's name's pendulum effect once per turn. If you do not control a card in your other pendulum zone, you can destroy this card, and if you do, add one Mythical Beast effect monster from your deck to your hand. The monster effect reads, each time a spell card is activated, place 2 spell counters on this card when that spell card resolves. If there are 4 or more spell counters on your field, this card cannot be destroyed by card effects. Once per turn, you can remove 4 spell counters from your field, then target 1 monster your opponent controls, banish it, and if you do, this card gains attack equal to the original attack of the banished monster until the end of this turn. Now, this has a very powerful effect. The fact that it introduces 2 spell counters to this card means you're going to rack up these spell counters incredibly fast. By having 4 or more, you cannot be destroyed by card effects. So this would have to be run over by something like a Blue Eyes White Dragon. The fact that you can remove 4 of the spell counters to remove a monster your opponent controls and then gain its attack points means you can get this card up to almost 6,000 attack points if you like, if you're facing against something like a Blue Eyes deck. As for its other effects of searching another Mythical Beast effect monster, the other one isn't that great at the moment. Maybe there might be some more support down the line, so you never know about that. Though its self-destruction effect is quite concerning, I would be more than happy to see further support for this card. Next card is, ironically, the card I was discussing in the last video. I was just saying about the potential for it to be a Cyberse type, or whether it could be maybe one of the main characters' new monsters. I was in part correct about that. That card is Xcode Talker. This is a Wind Cyberse with 2,300 attack, and it's a Link 3. So it requires 2 or more Cyberse type effect monsters. Obviously, being a Link monster, it'll require 3 Cyberse monsters unless you're using a Link 2 monster. You can use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. When this card is link summoned, you can choose a number of unused main monster zones equal to the number of monsters in the extra monster zone. Those main monster zones cannot be used while this monster remains face up. Monsters that this card points to gain 500 attack, also they cannot be destroyed by card effects. As for the first effect, you are really just shutting down one of your opponent's main monster zones unless you've managed to create the full board and be able to use both extra monster zones, which means you've shut down 2 of their main monster zones, which makes this card quite effective in that respect. 2,300 is not a particularly strong attack. Cards can very easily get over this. I can understand why they've done this, because the other 2 Talker cards, Encode Talker and Decode Talker, both have the same attack stat. As for the ability to gain for your cards that point to this, to gain 500 attack. It has some benefit, but it's a very generalized attack stat, so you get this in various cards in various forms. It's a nice little effect, but the real effect, to not be destroyed by card effects, means that you can bring out larger boards, bring out better monsters to this card's link points, and then introduce these cards to be protected. However, of course, since you can see one of the link points is directly above it, this can be a problem if your opponent is running anything of any particular note, anything strong. The fact that its other two link points are left and right mean that this card is better to be link summoned second, as though if you have a link monster already on board and then you introduce a new link monster, that's probably where this card comes best into play. The next card we'll look at is 3-burst Shot Dragon. This is a Dark Dragon 2400 link 3, requiring 2 or more non-token monsters. This is nice. It's a very generic card. That means you can just easily summon it, no specific types. And if its effect reads once per turn when a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated during the damage step, you can negate that activation. That's fantastic. Battle traps get negated. So you're looking at mirror forces, unless your opponent is running several of them. It's very decent for running that over if you've managed to establish a big board. Second effect is, if this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. Most cards have some sort of piercing or within their archetype, so this isn't anything special. Its third effect is, during your main phase, except the turn this card was special summoned, you contribute this card, then target one link 2 or lower link monster in your graveyard, special summon it, then you can special summon one level 4 or lower dragon monster from your hand. This is quite effective because the ability to bring out another link monster by replacing this card, if you find this card is dead forever for some reason and want to bring out something lower that might have a better effect for you at that time, it's probably better to go into that. The fact that it will bring out a dragon as well means that this is best being run obviously in a dragon based deck, and obviously by bringing out that the dragon, it means that you are obviously going to place that in the link monster you summon from this card's mutual link zone. That means its effects will be able to go off. Next card is Fire Prison. Interesting. This is a new field spell card. So its effects reads, dragon monsters on the field gain 300 defense. Not much to say about that really, because it's a very small increase. And the second effect is, neither player can attempt to link summon a link monster that has less link arrows than the total of those of the link monsters already on the field. Also, only link monsters can attack. Right, this is very restricting on the summoning of on the ability of link monsters of any other monsters, because that means it's restricted to only link monsters to attack. That means you can potentially stall your opponent from doing much until they get into a link monster, unless you're able to completely stop them with things like Solemn Judgment and just removal cards. That means you can just completely shut down your opponent. Also, the fact that you can dictate what your opponent has to link summon means you can essentially shut down most of their plays. The last effect is, if there are 2 or more Cyberse link monsters on the field, applying the following effects. When a Cyberse monster's activated effect resolves, negate that effect. Cyberse monsters in the field cannot attack or be targeted for attacks or effects. These effects are quite horrific in some respect, because it ends up, unless you're in some sort of mirror match or you're facing the Cyberse monsters, then this is particularly useful and can shut them down completely. So this is pretty much anti-Yusaku at the moment. It's generally quite effective as a card, but I don't consider it being run unless as a side card. It's like tech. The next card is Magical Boost. This is a quick play spell card. You can only activate one of this card's name once per turn. Send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard, then target one face-up card on the field that you can place a spell counter on. Place 2 spell counters on that card. That's nice enough support. Obviously, it's going to be for that Mythical Beast archetype when they introduce more cards, but in general, it's able to reduce your deck, thin your deck, so you can go into your better combo pieces, and also for just generalized any spellcaster card that requires spell counters, we'll find this card very useful. Maiden of Massacre can get to 2100 attack, or you could use this on something like a Dark Magician, skilled Dark Magician, to come up with 2 of the 3 counters necessary to tribute it to summon a Dark Magician. Its second effect is if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 monster from your deck that you can place a spell counter on, and if you do, place 2 spell counters on it. So you can instantly go into your that larger Mythical Beast. So that's quite impressive, actually. And obviously you can end up baiting out cards that would naturally just destroy, like Twin Twister, Mystical Space Typhoon. This does benefit from that kind of destruction. Next card is Parallel Port Armor. It's a normal trap card. Its first effect reads, target 1 link monster you control, equip it with this card. It cannot be targeted for your opponent's card effects. Also, it cannot be destroyed by battle. You're basically making it very powerful. So it would have to be removed from the field before you can really get rid of a link monster that you control. The fact that it removes the ability to target card effects means you're going to have to use mass whiteboards, like board wipes like Dark Hole, Raigeki, Mirror Forces. And the other effect is you can banish this card and 2 link monsters from your graveyard, then target 1 link monster you control. That monster can attack twice during each battle phase this turn. This utility has two effects, really. So you've got 1 in the graveyard. This benefits because that means you can, if you're close to defeating your opponent, you can almost guarantee your victory. However, the problem is to have 2 link monsters in your graveyard, unless you've been using a lot of them within the duel. This condition could be a little bit more difficult to meet, as you would also need this card in your graveyard. The next card is Magical Burst. This is a continuous trap card. You can only use this card's name as second effect once per turn. Each time an opponent's monster effect is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card when that effect resolves. Second ability is you can send this card with 6 or more spell counters to the graveyard, add 1 spell counter from your deck to your hand. The fact that it needs 6 or more spell counters makes it slightly restricted, but then again, monster effects tend to be quite prevalent at the moment, so against something like a Zodiac deck, you could potentially get this effect your very next turn. The ability to add any spell card from your deck to your hand means you can instantly come into your most important combo pieces. The next card is Ebi. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a light fairy level 1 with 500 attack and 200 defense. You can only use this card's name effect once per turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish up to 2 light fairy monsters from your graveyard or field except this card. For each monster banished this way, add 1 level 2 or lower light fairy monster from your deck to your hand except Eevee. The added cards must have different names. Generally, I can't really think of anything that really supports this at the moment. I'm sure there'll be something down the line. But the ability to, bring out two, though restricted light fairy monsters means that you can thin your deck, you can search for cards, and generally the two light fairy monsters in your graveyard might not even be doing anything, so it's better to get searches off that than to just have dead cards in your graveyard. It does mention here that Zeta Reticulant special summons Eevee tokens, but that has been localized in English to Eva tokens, so this card may be named Eva instead. Just a fun little fact there. The next card is a continuous spell card. Isn't this ironic? Now we've got more support for Parshath, Sanctuary of Parshath. This card's name is treated as the Sanctuary in the sky while it is on the field or graveyard. This is great actually as an effect, because you now no longer need to run the Sanctuary in the sky for effects that require this card's name to be used. That means you don't have to, fill your deck with those field spells, as it can be very disruptive. It can end up bricking your hand, and it can reduce the effectiveness of your turns. Its second effect is fairy monsters gain 300 attack and defense. Also, face down spell trap cards on the field cannot be destroyed or targeted by card effects. That's basically all your counter cards, your counter trap cards. They're going to be protected. Your opponent can't do anything about them. And the only time you're going to be using your cards are when in response to effects that your opponent goes for. Its last effect is once per turn you can target 3 cards with different names in your graveyard that are counter traps and or fairy monsters. Place them on the top of your deck in any order. This is great for longer term duels when you've had a lot of your cards gone to the graveyard. You can search for counter traps and fairy support. So this means you can vary what you decide, and because you're able to decide the order of how they go, you know for the next 2 or 3 turns what you're going to be drawing, and you can plan accordingly for your next turn. The next card is Reincarnating Parshath. This is a counter trap card. When a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated, you can reveal 1 counter trap in your hand, discard 1 card, and pay 1000 life points to negate that activation, and if you do, return that card to the deck. Then you can special summon 1 Parshath monster from your deck or extra deck. This is an incredibly powerful effect. I don't really need to mention how powerful this is. You've got a Parshath synchro monster that can benefit from this, which would normally not see that much play, but it can alter your opponent's battle positions. Also, you've got the normal Parshath and the newer Parshath. Both can be summoned from the deck. Both of those would normally require a tribute or 2 tributes in some case. So to be able to do all this, and also this is very generic as an effect to negate any of the type of card effects, spell, trap, or monster effect, you're likely to have a counter trap in your card, and though you are discarding a card and paying 1000 life points to negate the ability, you're returning that card to the deck, so any problem cards you can instantly send back. Sometimes sending back to the deck is even more prevalent and better than sending to the graveyard, because it means if they have some sort of graveyard effect, they cannot go off. The next card is the Legendary Shadow of the Six Samurai. This is a Dark Warrior level 4 with 500 attack and 2000 defense. You can only use this card's name effect once per turn. When You normal or special summon a Shadow 6 Samurai monster. You can special summon this card from your hand. Use go into a link 2, link 3, or even a level 4, a rank 4 Xyz monster. Its second effect is once per turn you can banish one level 4 or lower 6 Samurai monster from your graveyard. This card's attribute, level, attack, and defense become the same as the banished monsters until the end of this turn. So the utility of using the other attributes, certain cards rely on the variety of attributes to be on the field to be able to do anything. So if you've got all the other attributes and you're missing one, you can just look in your graveyard, think, okay, this is in the graveyard, I might as well use it, and gain the effects from that. Okay guys, that's the end of it. So what do you guys think of the new support? There's a lot of cards to be introduced all at one time. But like I said, the Fairies are going to see a lot of use and play in the future. Do you like these cards? Do you think there's anything else they could have added? Do you think there should have been more spell and trap card support? As always, I'd like to hear your replies. So remember to make sure to like the video, subscribe and comment. And as always, thank you for taking the time to watch the video.